We're joined by a lawyer and public policy expert, and that's Stanley Negbenebor. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good afternoon. The pleasure is absolutely mine.
Okay, I can barely hear you though, but let me proceed with my question. How do you think the 50% increase in telecom tariffs, could impact consumers looking at low-income households and also businesses?
Well, first and foremost, every kind of adjustment affects people either positively or negatively, either from the end of the producer or that of the consumer. As it relates to the consumer's end, which is, like you said, the poor households and all that, I think going by the facts and circumstances surrounding the decision for the increment, there may be some justification, particularly because for over 10 years, there has been no drastic increase in prices of data and call rates. So if after 12 years there's a decision to adjust, it's cost reflective, if you ask me, compared to inflation that has jumped over 500% from the last adjustment till date. It may just be time for us to demand efficiency rather than asking for a subsidized rate when it comes to telecom's costs.
Well, Mr. Negbenebor, kindly hold your thought. Let's take a break. When we return, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have a guest who is a lawyer and public policy expert in person of Stanley Negbenebor, speaking to us about the NCC increased tariffs. What do you think could be the reason provided by the NCC and, of course, telecom operators for this remarkable increase in tariffs?
I would say, first off, from the legal perspective, they've complied with all conditions precedent for warranting such an increment. If you look at the provisions of Section 4B and that of Section 108 of the Nigerian Communications Act, it provides the prerequisites that need to be complied with before such adjustments can be made. Under Section 4B of the law, the NCC, being the regulator, is mandated to act in the best interest of the consumers. And of course, if you flow into Section 108 of the Act too, it's expressly clear as to the modalities on how that increment would happen. The telecoms operators have since last year applied to the regulator on their plan, and they have provided their justifications. Conversations have been ongoing, and I think administratively, the NCC has exercised its powers in the best interest of all stakeholders, both from the service providers end and, of course, the ultimate benefit of the telco operators. If you look at it, they requested for a 100% increment, and after due consultation, negotiations, it has been pegged at not more than 50. So what it means is, because it's a free market, not all operators will do 50. People need to understand it from that point of view, but the maximum you can go is 50. And because it's a free market economy, every of those operators may want to outdo themselves. So for me, I think the stage is set for them to competitively outdo themselves price-wise. If operator A is doing 40%, someone can come with 20%, another person can say, no, I won't even do any increment. So let the consumers move to those who they think give them the best deal in terms of quality of service and, of course, right pricing.
Just to chip in there.
That's the beauty of capitalism.
Just to chip in there, Mr. Negbenebor, what role do you think the government can play in terms of mitigating the impacts of price hikes like this on consumers? Should the government in the first place intervene?
Well, government intervention starts and stops within the ambit of the law, which is regulation of the sector and consumer protection. And the ethics and the rudiments of consumer protection is the fact that whatever you are paying for, you get value for it. Now, I think the conversation will be different. If after all of this increment is approved, the telcos still have a reason to give suboptimal performances, at that point, your right kicks in to challenge the proprietary or otherwise of the service they have given to you. But if we want to actually operate a free market economy and bring in foreign investments, I think we need to right price every sector except for critical sectors. I do not think that telecommunications is as critical as food. Government can move subsidies to critical sectors such as food, and it will be in the best interest of the common man. The woman in the village in Kara Namoda does not use data, But if you have to subsidize data, it's not a fundamental right, if you ask me, personal opinion. So I think government should focus subsidies more on more critical sectors rather than trying to attempt to subsidize telecommunication services.
I do know we have a body called the Consumer Protection Commission for cases such as these, but what legal options are available, for consumers for their rights when it comes to tariffs and challenges in terms of increments?
Okay, well, yes, the Consumer Protection Agency is in place. I think that I've seen some news around some pressure groups within the telecom sectors representing consumers saying they will challenge the process. But I need to say that the laws around telecom services is a bit sui generis. They need to also pay attention to the fact that the Nigerian Communication Act expressly provides how disputes are to be resolved when it comes to telecommunication-related issues. If they follow that process, they may be heard. But beyond being heard, looking at the merits of it, I think that the operators have complied with the legal condition precedent. I would not say their case is dead on arrival, but I think the chances of success are very slim, extremely so.
Now, let's look at the economy now and this tariff increase. Do you think these can potentially impact Nigeria's economy for good or bad? Do you think stifling this can stifle the economic growth of Nigeria or not?
Well, as a government, that one of the pivots of their focus is building the digital economy. I would say that accessibility of digital services may be impacted. But if you really want to compare quality over cost, I think the focus should be more of getting good quality. A little bit of adjustment here and there, slightly painful, but ultimately, for me, I would advise that the focus should be more of quality control to ensure that people get value for the money they will spend.
Indeed, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Lawyer and public policy expert Stanley Negbenebor. Many thanks indeed.